An estimated 2 million Americans experience brain injury each year. Such injuries occur every 15 seconds. While thousands die each year from their injuries, millions more are part of a silent epidemic. Brain injury has deep and profound implications for the injured, their families, and their friends. It's common for survivors of brain injury to lose their jobs, become bankrupt, and fall out of relationships with loved ones. A brain injury can happen to you or me at any time. Please listen carefully to the information in this program in case this sort of tragedy strikes you or a member of your family. Today's topic is caregiving strategies. Our guests are Veronika Glenn and Robert deRose. Veronika is the Director of Education for the Southern Caregivers Resource Center. Her center is part of a statewide system of caregiver resource centers in California. She works closely with family members and trains them how to thrive in the role of caregiver. Robert deRose is the father of Allie, a beautiful young woman who is the survivor of 2 brain injuries. Along with his wife Susan, Robert serves as Allie's caregiver and protects her interests. Veronika, Robert, thank you very much for being here today to be interviewed.
Pleasure. Thanks for inviting us.
Robert, let's start with your story and tell us about Allie and your family's experience with caring for a brain-injured child.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. About 14 years ago, actually I should start from the beginning because I feel like I've earned a PhD in brain injury. Our daughter had a head injury when she was 13, coma for about 5 or 6 days, rehab for about 3 or 4 months, and at that time it took I'd say about 2.5 to 3 years to recover, and she did recovered about 95% of her faculties. The strange thing is at the beginning, we had no idea what to expect. So when the doctor told us that Allie is awake, we thought it was all over, everything was wonderful. But really the problems start after the brain injured victim is conscious again. And you realize what deficits might be present. Unfortunately for us, Allie did recover and did very well in school, but had a second injury when she was 18. Another car accident, not her fault, in a coma for about 4 months. Wow. So we had some experience going into this. Because it was so difficult to understand about the ramifications of head injury, we were just speaking a little while ago about how Susan, my wife, and I embraced it differently, especially as caregivers. I knew that this was going to be very, very difficult for me to take physically, emotionally, financially. So I reached out to a number of community services. I went to the support groups to understand brain injury and to understand the anger, the grief, all the stages we go through. And I think that has helped me a great deal to take care of Allie and understand that this is a new person now. And there's a different way you have to act, and she has deficits that she knows nothing about. Susan, my wife, unfortunately went the other way, where she never accepted what happened. So it was always difficult for her to be a caregiver because there was a lot of anger there. Sure. At herself, at Allie, at God, right. and really didn't do the psychologist. I did the psychologist, I did the support group, I did the priest. I mean, I really reached out and even got involved in doing some interventions with one of the local hospitals. So it's something you never expect, and it's not like TV shows it to be, that everything's good when the survivor wakes up. Really, the problems just start, and you've got to really reach out to everyone around you for help to understand it.
Right. How old is Allie now?
She's 32. So
and can she live independently?
No. not with the second accident. That has left her with some of the symptoms of a traumatic head injury, the aphasia, the speech, and a little bit different gait. But the worst thing with Allie is that she has really no comprehension of short-term memory. So nothing's being absorbed or retrieved. So you can't live independent if you don't know what you just ate, or you don't even know you just ate.
Right.
So we have to have constant 24/7 care. She is ambulatory and looks good, and she works for me 1 or 2 days a week for something to do, and she collates some papers and loves doing that. We're lucky that Allison is very positive. A lot of head-injured survivors go the other way, where there's a depression without understanding what has happened to me. Who am I? Allie is on a high, where if you ask her how she's doing, I'm doing great, how are you? So we're lucky in that respect. And I've seen it go the other way with some of the counseling I've done with families that have children, families that are in the same position as Susan and I. And it's scary when it goes the other way. It's very scary.
Veronika, there must be differences between being the caregiver for a brain injury person than, say, for the elderly and the ill. And I think probably most caregivers are caring for elderly. Would
Yes,
that be
most
fair?
caregivers, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what's the difference then in caring for a brain injured person?
I think in the case of a traumatic brain injury like that, you don't expect it at all. With older adults, you have an understanding they're going towards the end of their life, and therefore you're more resigned to it. With a traumatic injury like Allie's, think about that. It has a rippling effect through the whole family. As Robert said, his wife have a different reaction. Some of the hopes and dreams are gone. The grieving sets in, but we don't know that we're grieving because we've lost something. We've not lost that person to death, but we've lost that person's life expectancy, that person's maybe getting married, having children, what their life was going to be like, especially us women. We visualize our daughter's life being better than ours, and that's what we work on constantly, And so I can see Robert's wife's grief over that's not there anymore. But in this family's case, I think Robert did the right thing. He embraced the services that were there. He realized he needed to go to counseling and couldn't get through it himself. And he did all the right things because of that. That's what families need to do. Work with the medical profession to see where we're going, really find out from them what the person's capabilities are and what their deficits are so we can make sure they're safe. Robert did all the right things in that case.
And not doing it alone.
Right. And reached out to the community, and therefore he has an easier way of living with it and found the courage to reach out to other families.
Exactly.
Think about that.
Yes. Now, Veronika, yes. I've heard you say that there is a special kind of grief that goes with having a child who's brain injured.
Yes,
would you explain that?
Yes. It's those hopes and dreams that we lose. But see, the thing is we need to get through adjustment. Now, Robert did that well. He adjusted to what is in his life now, what his daughter can still do, recognized the deficit, made provisions for that by hiring someone to help. So he did all the right things because of that. His wife may still working on here were my dreams for my daughter.
Yeah. Veronika hits it right on the nail. Especially when you're surrounded by friends. We have some good friends, and they all have their children are getting married, or so you're constantly surrounded and reminded of what you will not have now. Now, unfortunately, we only have Allie. If we had other children, it would lessen the burden, but we don't. So, and I feel the same way. I mean, I look around and I see my friends, and they're planning a wedding, the graduation. Allie wanted to be a lawyer. So those things are still paramount in our mind. And you do still ask yourself 14 years later, how come this happened to us, or how come it happens to anybody? And it's very difficult. I would not be able to sit here unless I did all of the counseling. I mean, there's no way. Susan would be, first of all, she wouldn't even do it. She doesn't want to talk about it. Sure. But if she sat here, she would break down in 5 minutes. And that's, it's still harbored inside.
14 years.
And I realize that with mother-daughter, what should have been, you should have been a grandma. Yeah. Allie can't be a mother. So there are all these things that are very difficult to adjust to. And unfortunately, they're lifelong. There's no end. You mentioned something earlier, and I was in a counseling class on the first accident because I said, wow, this is a lot stranger than I thought. Someone told me that you could equate the feelings that you have from a child with a brain injury to waking up in the morning and getting a phone call that your child just died in a car accident. That's the feeling Susan and I have in the morning every day. A car accident death is finished. Mm-hmm. There's a different acceptance. This is looking at our daughter each morning and say, she died. It's not really her. It's another, I think, a great little person, but it's not the same.
But there must also be joy being with her.
Oh, there is. There is. And again, we're lucky that Allie is ambulatory, smiles, laughs, is positive. I still do some of the same things. I mean, Allie and I have breakfast when she's with us or she comes to work. We have breakfast together every morning, go out. She loves to go out. I force her to read a newspaper and say, okay, now read these headlines. And then when we're back, we're remodeling. When we're back in our home, we have a little lake. We go down to the lake. We walk around the lake. We take the dog. We have a big dog. Or we fish. I mean, we do a lot of the same things. So there is, you know, it's still my daughter and I love her. You know,
and there's still joy.
There's a lot of joy. There's a lot of joy if you look at it the right way. You can't, like, and I looked at it the wrong way for years. It serves no purpose. If you look at it the right way, it serves a purpose because she still loves and everything else, and we do also. And I like being with her. I mean, I like her. I always did. You know, outside loving her, I like her. So.
Does Allie live with you?
Allie lived with us for 13 years, and we were looking for a place that we could feel comfortable. We never found one, because there isn't a place that's going to take care of your daughter like you.
Yes.
But we found one recently, and Allie's been living there for about 9 months.
And how is that going?
She likes it because it gives her a little bit more feeling of independence. She doesn't want to be with us either. And we had other dreams of being together. Well, I'll retire soon. So I think this could work out. The task we have as parents now, what happens when we go? And I got to tell you, family and friends, they're there, but they're not there. You lose something when this happens to family and friends, especially the injured. My daughter doesn't really have any friends. She has one person that she speaks to, so it's difficult. It's difficult for us in that now we have to plan, and who could we have to take care of Allie when we're gone? So we're going through that now before I get to 60, 70, 80 years old. I'm trying to plan that now with help. I have a counselor that only does head injury, and he's been working with us for a couple of years now, you know, to do all that planning.
And probably the best you can do is plan.
Oh, you have to.
That's,
you can't be caught later on and then something happens and there's no one there to take care of the loved one.
Yes. Yeah.
Then it's really difficult.
Yeah. She's going to need lifetime care and supervision. And so setting up a trust of some sort and designating someone that will look after her. And please, Robert, pick a younger person.
Yes.
So they'll be around for a while that will look after her best interest financially as well as physically.
Absolutely.
The help that she needs,
Now you've heard Robert's story. You hear the stories of lots of caregivers. What do they say are their most common challenges?
I think resigning them to the fact that there is a change. And after about a year to recognize that it may not get any better. That's probably the hardest thing, to know that they're going to have that short-term memory if that's what's happening and may not overcome that, so they won't be able to take care of themselves. That's probably the toughest decision to come to. Hope springs eternal in human beings, you know?
Coming to terms with that, I think, could be pretty difficult. Does that bring on depression
Yes,
and
generally.
sense of loss and
Yes.
maybe anger?
Yes. Depression, definitely. We happen to keep statistics at Southern Caregiver Resource Center and find that about 63% of family caregivers are clinically depressed.
Wow.
And that's a very high statistic,
Wow.
but it is with the drastic change in their life and the coping and where do I go and look for help, what can I do? And then you need to work through adjustment. If you don't, you're always going to be angry. You're always going to feel guilty that you're not doing enough, you know, if you don't talk to somebody else. Because the worst thing you can do, what I see with some families, they burden each other. You know, even sometimes the person that's maybe the survivor or the patient, and let them know, you know, I'm overwhelmed, it's too much for me, I can't do this anymore. When Robert did the right thing again by going to the outside. You would not want to tell your daughter, for instance, I'm having a really hard time coping with this today. But you can say that to a counselor very easily, and then have somebody to give you, saying you're doing everything you can, and give you some feedback. You don't want to burden each other with that, you know.
I would think the inclination would be to turn inward and become
Yes.
Right.
more isolated
Yes.
Right.
when
Yes.
you're depressed.
Yes.
So
And some people have a tendency to do that. And then they call us when they're at a crisis point. Something has happened, their loved one has fallen on top of that or wandered away, you know, or there are some other changes in health, and then they call when they're in a crisis, where it would just be better right from the beginning, as Robert did, to reach out, look for your resources in the community, who is there to help, and seek those resources out, and especially go to a support group. I love that you said that. That's like my soapbox I stand on. There's other people like you that are doing the same thing. And the value in that is to know that you're not alone.
Right.
And when you're looking for something, they've already found it.
Right. As sad as
Yes.
that may be, it's very comforting.
Yes,
It really is, because truly they been there, done that.
Yes.
Been there, done
Yes.
that. And you can't speak to individuals or friends about the whole incident, the episode, what it's not comprehensible. They really look at my daughter, and since she's not in a wheelchair or something, they go, look how wonderful Allie is, how wonderful she's doing. And yes, and I say, yeah, she is. But inside, they don't know that the dreams, the goals that will never be, and the feelings Susan and I have, they don't know that. And we learned early on not to even talk about it anymore, because in the beginning we would. And I gotta say, friends and families really, they become standoffish with that, because you're grieving. They don't want you to hurt in front of them.
right, they don't know what to do with that.
So the easiest thing is to become a little bit distant. So that happened to us early in the accident, or in the whole sequence of events.
I suspect that most caregivers didn't really sign on to be
No.
caregivers.
No.
And
No.
so it's an inherited role. I'm sure finances are often very difficult for caregivers, especially if you're caregiving, you can't be out maybe
Working.
Yes,
working.
Right.
So
exactly.
The burden.
Especially somebody that needs as much care as Allie does 24/7.
24/7.
One person can't do it alone.
Right.
The two parents can't do it alone,
Right.
you know.
right. Well, this brings us to the question of resources. Now, you're with the Southern Caregivers Center in San Diego, but you're part of an alliance or a group that's throughout
Statewide,
California,
yes.
and there must be a national level to this. How do people make these connections for resources?
Yes. Well, nowadays you can go in the internet, you know, and just type in the word caregiver. You'll be surprised what comes up. Or Area Agency on Aging, or another one is Elder Care Locator. You go to those websites and they'll tell you you put your state in, and then your county, and they'll tell you what's available. Our centers are throughout California. There's 11 sites that can easily be found. Either going through a website, or Family Caregiver Alliance is kind of our oversight. But the main thing is, as you said, to reach out, you know, to people and look for some help, because you can't do it alone. go to a support group, know where your resources are. The Brain Injury Foundation here in town is doing a great job helping these families. You know, they put on fundraisers to make sure that they have some money to help them. So they do a great job too. And we're there for the family, is where the Brain Injury Foundation, you know, will help the afflicted people to look for some resources. But reach out to those things and look for help.
So whether it's a caregiver for a brain injury survivor or an elderly person or someone with an illness, the most important step is to make the connection, because once you make a connection, you go to a meeting, you find a resource, that leads to other resources.
Yes.
Is that
Yes.
a fair,
Yes.
fair statement?
Yes.
Yep.
Because the resources are there. In California particularly, we're ahead of the curve in providing services to families. So, but they are there. We need to just look for them.
Yeah, I
but
think
to
they're all,
reach
the
out.
resources are available
Yes,
all over
they
the
are.
country.
Yes, they are.
Every
Yeah.
city.
Yeah.
Now, Robert, you, because of your own situation, created a foundation that provides assistance to other families with brain injury. Would you care to comment about
Be
that?
happy to. Survivors Rehabilitation Foundation. And when Allie's first accident occurred, I had a problem with the insurance because they only pay a certain amount of money for rehab. Then it ends. So I had to pay out of our pocket, and we were blessed, thank God, that we could do that. There was another young lady next to Allie, and that person didn't have insurance or the funds, and they actually sent her home. And I was wondering why would Allie go to the rehab and this girl's going home, because she was in the same condition, and it was a matter of money. So I asked the hospital about what if I could put together some kind of thing to help people like that. And they said, you know, someone else is doing this. So I joined with Ray, whom you know, and Ray and I started this foundation 21 years ago. This is our 21st year. And what we do, we work with a local rehab center. And what we do is they give us candidates that have run out of money, have no more insurance, but still need brain injury rehab. And we fund the rehab for them. So last year, I think we did about 18 fundings, and we've never turned anyone down. So it's a kind of a, I look at it from, you know, something that's so terrible to something we're doing good.
Your service area is San Diego.
Yeah, we work primarily only in
San
San Diego with, and only with brain injury.
But the idea of a foundation like yours could be, someone could start such a group
Anywhere.
connected to any
Anywhere.
hospital.
There's such a need. And certainly Veronika knows the statistics. There's over a million people a year who have head injury. A million. 100 and something thousand die, 150,000 are permanently disabled, and then the rest have some form of deficit, be it like a little memory or a shake, but they have something. If you're in a coma for a period of time, you're not escaping without anything. It's not like Steven Seagal on TV wakes up 7 years later, he's fine, he's playing karate. So there's such a need, and I wouldn't have done this had it not been personal.
Yeah.
And that's really the sad thing, because we're blessed that we have the means. And the thing that got me so involved with this is personal. Otherwise, I wouldn't have given it a second thought. And that's not right, because anybody of means should embrace helping this. And
Well,
this
maybe somebody will watch this and start a foundation
so.
similar to
I
what
hope
you've
so.
created.
That would be great.
I want to come back to a topic earlier. Because caregiving can create depression and anger and fear and loss, humor is an important aspect.
It certainly is,
Yeah.
yeah. I really think, looking at Robert, that's gotten him through a lot of times. And his reaching out into the community and helping, I think, has helped him also to heal.
Yeah.
You know, to know that he's helping people, because that always makes us feel better. Us human beings really are at our best when we reach out and try to help other people, but keeping your sense of humor. Because the deficit can be so dramatic sometimes, where the brain injury survivor doesn't remember what they did 20 minutes ago. And it's almost like, you know, every day you wake up and it's a new world to you, and you have to explain things over and over again and remind them to take care of themselves, remind them to eat, remind them to take care of their medication. It can be devastating. If you don't laugh at yourself, you're going to go into a permanent depression, I think, when you do that. So you got to keep your sense of humor always. That's what gets us through.
What's the most positive message of hope that you can give to caregivers?
You know what? We don't really look at our health that we have ourselves until we lose it. I think the most positive thing I can say to everyone, we all woke up this morning. Think about that. You know, hope really means to me, and I have my own adversities, that today has meaning. We should do today what we want to do in life. Reach out and help other people because that's when we feel our best. And enjoy today. We have today. That's a guarantee. None of us know what we have tomorrow. Think about that, Robert. Did your daughter,
Look how it
the day
changed
before her
instantly.
accident,
There's a saying in the disabled community, you're a TAB, temporarily able-bodied.
yes,
Temporarily, and
Yes.
it's true.
Yes.
We don't know.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
When you'll lose that
Yeah, when
Yeah.
you lose that.
Yeah.
in a
So,
flash.
yeah,
in a flash.
yeah.
Yes.
So, Robert, what's your key?
I think I've covered it. It's a caregiver. When friends and family, early on, because they all do this, we'll help you. What can we do? You tend to say, it's okay. Mm-hmm. Don't ever say it's okay. Take advantage of friends, family, when they say, we'll come over, we'll watch, we'll do it, because the caregiver, my wife and I, in our instance, you need a respite. You have to get a respite. You can't do this 24/7. So when anybody volunteers, take advantage of it, and they mean it.
What is the most helpful something they could do for you?
Take me to coffee and let's talk. Absent saying like, my husband and I are free Friday night. How about we come over and get Allie and we'll take her to dinner,
Right.
and you guys go out and hang out.
Just the respite care.
Oh, yeah.
And
I think the practical things that family and friends and coworkers can do, of maybe in the beginning when they see the parents rushing off to the hospital and then the rehab center, to bring a meal in and call them in the morning and say, you know, what time are you going to be home tonight? Can we bring you a meal over? On Saturday, we'll go visit your daughter. Then maybe you and your husband can have some time to go out to a meal together and have that downtime.
So reach out and to organizations like Veronika.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The poster child for caregivers. That's what Robert is.
I don't want to
think.
be that. I didn't want this.
well, thank you both very much for agreeing
Thank
to the
you, Tom.
interview.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.